much or what is expected of me. So basically you want to know where we stand. Dean nodded with a grimace. Yeah, I don't want to push you, Nick. I get this isn't what you planned for or even wanted. Not even close, I admitted, then offered him a grimace of my own. But apparently that's life. If things were different, I shook my head. But they're not, so there is no point in even thinking about it. I blew out of breath. I can't accept you as my mate right now, I told him, and quickly added, it's not you or anything you've done. The fact that I'm even considering this says a lot about you. He laughed and gave me a lopsided grin. It's cool. I get it. We just met, and already it seems as if we should fall in together like we'd known each other for years. Like you said, we're friends, and that's a good start because we're friends, right? I returned his laugh. Yeah, you've more than earned my friendship. But still, for everyone else, what should I do? Should I act as your mate or only as support? Is me fighting the douche in the list of possibilities? I grinned. The douche. I was definitely going to start using that. I'd rather you didn't fight the douche as of now. Both of you are unknowns to me. I don't know anything about how either of you can fight. It'd be a risky bet, and if you lose, it's over. That's it. His expression pinched. Hey, I beat your dad. I grimaced, afraid I'd offended him. Yeah, but he's old and has a bad knee. Okay, got it. You assume I'll lose, he replied, sounding a little bitter. Sorry, Dean, I'm just trying to be honest here, okay? Besides, I got the feeling you don't really do fights. His pinched expression eased. I don't, and honestly, I'd rather not fight the douche, he admitted, only to add, but I could do it, fight him. It wasn't just your dad's age and bad knee the only reason I beat him, Capus. Again, I found myself grinning. Yeah, I got it. How about I tell you Safe's plan, and we figure out how to go from there. When he nodded, I explained her idea of using his father's manipulation to our benefit. It sounds like a good plan, but it brings right back to the same problem, putting you in a position you never wanted to be an alpha, but also one who has to fight for it. He scratched the back of his head, expression thoughtful, and didn't say anything for a long while. It only confirmed my suspicions he didn't want this. Dean didn't want the weight of alpha on his shoulders. Even in name only, he was weighed down with responsibility, and I didn't blame him for not wanting it. The only ones I blamed were Father, Douche, and all the alphas that let these old rules stay in place. There has to be a way around this, Dean said after a while. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but my cousin, Mike, is right. I looked at him curiously as I pulled my legs to sit cross-legged in the chair. What do you mean? Right about what? I asked him why he wasn't with other alphas, and he said why should he when Alice, his mate, was better at that stuff than him. He's right, why should he? Why should I fight when you're the better fighter? Because of you. They accepted her, he said, cutting me off. She was in the alpha meetings all week long, and Mike wasn't. They accepted her and her alone to speak for her pack. He had a point. I frowned. But Alice wasn't fighting or facing a challenge. They say the challenges are alpha to alpha, and I have to issue a challenge or accept it, but do the rules say I have to fight out the challenge? Well, I have no clue, but Dean, we still have the same problem. You don't want to be alpha. I don't want to be my uncle who held his pack under the heel of his boot, and I don't want to be like Dad making rules or doing things without people's consent because I know what's good for them. Again, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I prefer to be more like my cousin. Alice and Mike apparently share alpha duties, Dean said, again looking thoughtful. And how exactly would that work? You don't like anything about being alpha, I said, surprised he was even suggesting this. I didn't until you used my patience to explain how you feel about your pack, Dean replied. I'm not a leader, but I can be a caretaker. Just like my patience, I can care for the pack, while you can be the ass kicker. I stared at him in surprise. And you'd really be okay with all of that? Yeah, because it wouldn't be me deciding the fate of the entire pack. One wrong decision wouldn't lead to death and mayhem if I have you there to check me, or at least that's the plan, he said, giving me a cheeky grin. And I wouldn't have to be super serious and bored to death listening to old men rattle on and on. Wait a minute, I said, narrowing my eyes at him. Why do I have to be the one listen to old men rattle on? Because you want to be the leader, obviously, Dean said, and then with another cheeky grin added, and I'm alpha, I say so. Oh, really? Yeah, and what am I? Chopped liver, I demanded, strangely fighting a smile. You're the little lady, obviously. Little Dean, you call me that ever again, and I promise you levels of pain you've never experienced before. I am the alpha. Again, rough stuff has never been my thing, but I'll keep an open mind, he said, winking at me. That's totally not where I was going with that, I argued. Yeah, but I prefer my way. It's so much better. Want to come here and see? Dean wagged his eyebrows at me. I shook my head. Yeah, how about no, we've got a lot of work to do. Let's see if this idea of yours, you accepting the challenge and me fighting the challenge, is even possible. We'll find a way for it to be possible, Dean said, standing with me. Right, like it was that easy. I also need to see if the others found out anything about Brandon. What do you mean? I mean, as this is an annual meeting of alphas, how did Brandon get here? Who did he come with? I mean, it's just all too convenient he's here now, I replied as we walked into the house. Who he came with is easy. We have lists of every alpha and who they brought with them. I'll talk to our records keeper and find out. If he's not on the list, that mean he didn't come here officially, Dean said. Why didn't I think of that? And if he didn't come here officially, it means he was already planning to do something, I said, my thoughts running a mile a minute. Thanks, Dean. I took a few hurried steps when Dean stopped me with a hand on my lower arm. Yeah, he gave me a sly grin. Well, seeing as I'm super helpful in everything, I could possibly deserve some kind of reward. Reward, I said, giving him an incredulous look. Yeah, but hey, I'm an easy, laid-back guy, so something like a kiss would be more than good enough. I let out a dry bark of laughter. Wow, I know. I'm amazing, Dean said, running a hand through his hair and wagging his eyebrows at me. You're something all right, I said, then took his hand and kissed his knuckles. They're a kiss. A look of pure disappointment overtook his face. Seriously? Of course, I said and shrugged. You just said you wanted a kiss. Not my fault, you didn't specify. Now come on. There's work to be done. 1718. Sorry, Nick, John said with a shrug of his shoulders. He, Wesley, said, and I sat in the game room. Dean helped Wesley get the records we needed, but had to leave to cover someone's shift at the hospital. I forced a smile onto my lips. No worries. If Pack Law states no women challengers, then we'll find something else. What did you guys find out about Brandon? Wesley didn't seem any happier than John did when he cleared his throat. Brandon came along with the Alpha of Orlando. It seems a year or so after he left us, the Alpha there took him in, and they're now best of friends, apparently. I said. My chest tightening and breathing was becoming harder. Is there anything in the law books preventing a champion of sorts? Could Dean issue a challenge and I fight for him? John crossed his arms over his chest, brow furrowed. I don't think I saw anything about champions, but he shrugged as he looked at me. Seeing as how they're so anti-woman fighting, the other alphas would probably veto the option. Say cleared her throat. I heard from my parents. Brandon is officially the alpha now. They've done the ceremony to welcome him in and everything. He's made your father his beta for now. Her expression softened to sympathy. Everyone seems pleased he's come back. She stopped, but there was obviously more to say. They asked about you and Brandon told them you chose to stay, refusing to accept him as alpha. The general response isn't good. For him or for me, I asked, but when I saw her expression, I knew the answer. Why, he was always going to be the alpha, I guess, Sade replied. But he left. Did they all forget about that? To them, he was grieving. All people deal with grief differently. He came back when your father needed him and saved him from Alpha Brent, Sade explained. Her expression was still tight. Again, there was more said, but this time she stayed silent. Perhaps her parents demanded she and Wesley return back home. What would she do? Did she want to go back? Did her parents convince her that I was wrong? Sade's face was guarded, and I wasn't sure one way or another. Right, I said, my voice cracking a little. I cleared my throat. I guess this is a good time to take a break, decompress, and we'll go back to the drawing board. Nick, Wesley said, looking worried. We'll meet up again in a few hours, Wes. We'll think of the what next then, okay? I left before any of them said anything. Their sympathetic looks were worse than the bad news, and it was really bad news. I walked through the house, eventually stopping in the main living room. It was empty now, but I took a seat in the far corner. I pulled up my legs and chewed on my lip and let the reality of the situation sink down into me. I closed my eyes and hugged myself. This was near to the worst outcome I'd imagined. My pack, no, not my pack anymore, didn't need me to save them apparently. They didn't care that Brandon would only abandon them again when it suited him. Or would he? With irritation, I ran a hand over my head again. Could I be wrong about him and this whole situation? Is that what Alpha Brent and everyone else had been trying to tell me true? Was I acting like a spoiled brat who didn't get the toy she wanted? I wasn't sure anymore. I let all the emotions I'd been keeping in check come in and had their say. Sometimes I cried, sometimes ground my teeth until it started to hurt, and sometimes it was like I couldn't breathe. Surprisingly, the people that came and went paid me no mind. Perhaps I wasn't the first to act as a bipolar psycho here, or maybe they knew I needed to be alone. Whatever the reason, I was left be to process everything, and when it was done, I actually felt a lot better. I was a rogue, I'd lost my pack and my family, I had no future, and all of this hurt like hell, but it didn't have to be the end, right? There had to be some other purpose for my life. The thought made my nose wrinkle, but what choice did I have? "Hey, Nick," Dean said, sounding surprised. I looked up as he walked into the room. He was wearing a strange shade of olive green scrubs. He pulled one of the armchairs over next to me. "Hey, Dean, you're home early, aren't you?" Dean gave me an odd look as he sat down. "Nick, it's 7 in the morning. I've been working all night." "Oh, really?" I blinked in surprise and glanced out the window. Sure enough, the display of pinks and oranges rose up over the trees. "Have you been up all night? Something wrong?" "I guess I have," I said, purposely avoiding the second question. Dean continued looking at me strangely. "So what's up?" I opened and closed my healing hand. It was almost back to normal, but there was still some lingering stiffness. "Your father was right. For starters, the Alpha Challenge is a no girls allowed club." He winced. "No loopholes." "Doesn't seem like it." I shrugged. "I'm sorry, Nick." "We'll figure out something," he said, the wince still in his expression. "Yeah, we'll just have to be more creative," I said, and forced a smile on my face. "Yeah, I mean there is still Sage's plan, right? We can still call foul on the passing of leadership." "Totally," I said, still with this fake positivity. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I couldn't bring myself to stop it. "Well, you must be exhausted, and I probably need to get some rest too. I'll see you later." "Nick," Dean said as I stood. "Everything is going to be okay." "Of course," I replied. Eventually, it would be. "You seem a bit off," he said, standing as well. I shrugged. "I'm just tired. I hadn't realized I'd been up all night." "Okay, so what's next?" "My face meets the pillow," I said with a laugh. Dean's eyes opened wide. "Is that a joke? From you?" "Why not? Time to try on new faces, but I am going to try to get a few hours of sleep, so it's not that much of a joke," I replied, walking to the door. "Wait, what do you mean, try new faces?" Dean asked, taking my hand and giving me a tug towards him. I hesitated, then took a step to him. I knew something was up. "Nick, you don't need to try any new face. The one you have now is perfectly fine. Really, don't change a thing. You believe me when I said everything is going to be okay, right?" My stomach did a strange fluttering thing, and my cheeks warmed. "Yeah, things will be okay." And because I couldn't just leave well enough alone, I added, "eventually." His face fell into an expression of sympathy. "Don't," I held up a hand. "You don't need to feel sorry for me. I'm going to get enough of that from others." "I don't, but giving up." I'm not giving up, only accepting your father was right. I can't challenge Brandon, and it seems as if not mine, but the pack is perfectly happy without me. So not giving up, only moving on, I explained. "I see," Dean said, nodding. "Call it what you want, but you're giving up. Who says your pack is happy without you?" "Yeah, right, sure they do. Say, talk to her parents. They say the pack accepts Brandon, and that my objecting only makes me look bad. And we can believe them." A dry laugh bubbled out of me. "Yeah, we can." He gave me an exaggerated, suspicious glare. "They sound like dumbasses to me." "Dean, no, seriously, who wouldn't want you as their alpha instead of some douche who left them when they lost their Luna?" "No one." "That's who." Again, Dean somehow managed to make my moods brighter. "You don't have to do this. In fact, this is better for you. No alpha duties, no fighting. Life goes on as it always has." "Oh no," Dean said, tugging my hand again. "You are so not going to use me to throw in the towel." He pulled me into his arms and held me in a loose hug. It was a strange, yet kind of nice. "Now, if you're so concerned with what I want, or what's better for me, I'm willing to discuss that at length, or perhaps you'd like if I showed you." "Really, Dean?" He grinned, but instead of